Let me thank Senator Regal and his wife Lori for their support. And what Senator Regal just did happens far too rarely. He made an analysis of some of the major issues that our country has faced over the last several decades. And he has decided that if you look at my response to those issues and Secretary Clinton's response to those issues, he has chosen to support my candidacy, and I'm very, very grateful. Very briefly, we don't talk about trade very much in this country. It's not a sexy issue. But the truth is that our disastrous trade policies, including NAFTA, including permanent normal trade relations with China, have cost working people in this country millions of decent paying jobs and have driven us into a race to the bottom, where workers today, in many cases, are earning lower wages for doing the same job that they used to earn. I opposed all of these disastrous trade agreements. Secretary Clinton supported, in one way or another, virtually all of these corporate-sponsored disastrous trade agreements. Senator Regal talks about the most important foreign policy issue in modern American history. He heard, and I heard, what President Bush and Vice President Cheney and others had to say about Iraq. He understood, and I understood, that what they were saying was not right, that that war could be a disaster, and of course it turned out to be a disaster. I voted, not only did I vote against that war, I did my best in helping to lead the opposition to that war. And as I've said many times, it gives me no joy at all, because my small state of Vermont suffered a whole lot from that war. We lost too many brave young men. If you go to the website, look at what I said in 2002, and much of what I feared would happen did happen. Senator Regal talks about Wall Street and the billions of dollars that Wall Street spent to get deregulated. Check out my discussion with Alan Greenspan and others about the wisdom of ending Glass-Steagall and allowing huge investor banks to merge with commercial banks, to merge with insurance companies. Help lead the effort against it. Tragically, we failed, and as Senator Regal indicated, we all know what happened, and that is this country was plunged into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression as a result of the greed and recklessness of Wall Street. Senator Regal touches on what is perhaps the most important issue, and that is that American democracy is being undermined today because we have billionaires and their super PACs buying elections. What democracy means to me, if you want to disagree with me, that's fine. You want to vote against me, that's fine. But you don't have the right to buy an election because you are very, very wealthy. And boy, is there a contrast in how we raise campaign funds between Secretary Clinton and myself. As you all know, she has a number of super PACs. And her last super PAC reported raising $25 million special interest money, $15 million from Wall Street alone. I've taken a different path. It is a revolutionary path. And it is part of what we mean by the political revolution. And Don, I'm happy to tell you that literally today, as I understand it, our campaign has received 5 million individual campaign contributions, more than any candidate in the history of the United States at this point in a campaign, averaging somewhere around $27. Now that's the difference. One candidate raises 15 million from Wall Street, another candidate raises 5 million individual contributions, $27 apiece. Today, there is a caucus going on in Maine. And I was looking at some of the photographs on the website. And what I saw, and it moved me very much, is exactly what we are fighting for. In Maine today, there were block after block after block of people lining up to participate in the Maine primary. Yesterday in Kansas, where we won by more than a 2-to-1 vote, they actually had more people participating in that caucus than the unbelievable election campaign that Barack Obama ran in. Turnout in Nebraska, very, very high. What this campaign is about, and what Senator Riegel is talking about, is beginning the process of bringing Americans back into the political process to stand up, to fight back, and to create a government that works for all of us and not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors. I am very moved and grateful for the support that we have received from Senator Riegel and his wife Lori, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. He was here today to tell you what he thought about the current campaign finance situation. I agree with him, and I very much appreciate his support. Yeah, yes.
As president, would you stop sending aid to Israel until they agree to abide by international?
I think the United States has to have a level playing field in terms of its relationship to Israel and the Palestinian Authority. And I believe in that very strongly. And I will do everything I can to try to work in what is, as you know, a very, very difficult situation, trying to create a two-state solution if that is possible. But I do believe that the United States needs to have an even and a level playing field dealing with both sides. Yes, sir.
Can you win Michigan, Bernie?
Well, I'll tell you on Tuesday night, I'll give you a definitive answer. I think what we have seen in recent months, and Senator Riegel mentioned this as well, we started this campaign off at 3% in the polls, somewhere, I don't know, 60, 70 points behind Secretary Clinton. And every state that we've gone to Iowa, we started off 50 points behind. We ended up in a virtual tie. We started off 30 points behind in New Hampshire, and we won that by a good vote. We started off way, way down here. I think that gap is closing. I think we have the momentum, and I hope very much that we can win. Yes, ma'am.
America's youth has been seeing rising rates of anxiety disorders, possibly caused by tough education systems. What would you do to combat this?
Well, that's kind of a local issue. I don't think the federal government should be running local educational systems, but I am very happy to tell you that the Congress, and this is one area where we have had bipartisan support, is ending No Child Left Behind, which I think will be a step forward. Yes, sir.
Why do you support the RFS when there's so many environmental problems that are caused by growing so much corn to make ethanol?
Well, I'll tell you why. And I think what we have got to do is move to a new and improved level of biofuels, and I believe that. And we can do better. But this is what I do believe. What I do believe is that the scientists are right in telling us that if we do not get our act together in the next few years, that the impact of climate change, which is already disastrous, will be much, much worse. So I think we have a planetary crisis in terms of climate change. I think the United States has got to move as aggressively as we can in every way, away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And if we do not do that, by the end of this century, this planet, according to the scientists, could be between 5 degrees and 10 degrees warmer. So there are many, many things you got to do. We got to do energy efficiency, we got to do wind, we got to do solar, we got to do geothermal. But I do believe that we can improve biofuels over where they are right now. Yes, ma'am. Well, there are two things we're going to do. Number one, I think that in the year 2016, when we look at public education, it can no longer be first grade through 12th grade, free public education. That was a great idea for many, many decades. But right now, in many ways, a college degree is the equivalent of what a high school degree was 50 years ago. And I believe, therefore, that we have got to make public colleges and public universities tuition-free, okay? That's just an extension of the concept of public education, given the world we are living in right now. Number two, there are millions of people in this country, young and not so young, who are struggling with very high levels of student debt. And these people sometimes literally cannot get married, they can't buy a car, they can't get a house, they can't have children. It is pretty crazy stuff. We should not be punishing people for the crime of getting a higher education. We have legislation in that would substantially reduce student debt in this country, and we pay for that. We pay for that by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation, which will more than cover free tuition at public colleges and universities, as well as substantially lowering student debt. Yes, sir. Yeah.
How important, sir, is the black vote here in Michigan, and will it help propel you to victory, do you think?
Black vote in Michigan, black vote all over this country is enormously important. It's a significant part of the Democratic vote. No ifs, buts, and maybes about it. As I just mentioned, we started this campaign at 3% in the polls. We have come a very, very long way. We are making progress in improving the support we're receiving from the African American community and from the Latino community, also an important part of the Democratic vote. What is very interesting, I'll tell you what's very interesting, and we've seen this in the last number of weeks. Increasingly, what you're looking at in these votes are less a racial distinction than a generational distinction. So what we are seeing is that our campaign is doing quite well. We don't have exact numbers, quite well with young whites, with young African Americans, and with young Latinos. Not so well with older whites, older African Americans, and older Latinos. And we're working on that too. All right, I've got to prepare for the debate.
Could I just add one
Sure.
comment to that?
Yeah.